before they even leave. They take permission from
I don't
the
think there's really anything on ground to improve.
We struggle with the ASU strike.
Minister of Education volunteered and said, give me 2 weeks.
It was a life. The president never gave me any deadline.
I don't think there's really anything on ground to improve.
We struggle with the ASU strike.
Minister of Education volunteered and said, give me 2 weeks.
It was a life. The president never gave me any deadline.
A new day in a new month, and of course in a new year 2025, glorious and a sun-shining morning live from the nation's capital. It is the 2025, the long-awaited, and of course I will call it the days of counting, the countdown as well, just to be able to witness a new day in the new month, and of course a record in 2025, which has been highly celebrated all over the world. And let's bring to you some of the clips and the pictures all over the world where it looks that many were anticipating 2025, and of course are receiving it with good faith. We can see the fireworks just to receive 2025. We could see some countries go to Syria, go to UK, go to US. They trail out in the numbers just to be able to mark the beginning of January of the 2025. Dubai was left out of all of that. They were put on board this particular display when the clock had just struck just at the midnight. You can see the shows how there were a lot of the people were really jubilating all over the world just to be able to witness a new year. It really looks at the whole over the world. Many had really saw the concern of economic powers, the struggle, economic issues, political issues, religious issues, and they couldn't wait for 2024. For people to say goodbye to 2024. And just as they click down of 2025, a lot of people came out in the numbers to the streets just to be able to have a moment. In New York City, a lot of crowd out of nowhere hall started. Thousands just got out just to be able to mark the moment. That is what we could see. Thousands filled many of the street to catch up the sight with all of those ball drops and the fireworks that was actually being displayed just in the midnight. One of the things that everyone are looking forward to for 2025 is what many are yet to say. What is 2025 bringing about? What is a year will be like? Economic, political, religious, and all of those socio-economic diversity to the world. And it looks at a lot of expectation. We're just gonna be taking on to the new year. Many cities have their own traditions of dropping things on the new year. Just when we're back to Nigeria, a lot of people were also jubilating, putting out fireworks right there on the street. A lot of jubilating. Some were really just to pass through the whole night in the way of receiving the new year 2025. Just some of those areas in the Europe and all of those countries really took time out of their busy schedules or just to be able to have the moment and catching the moment. Details of all of that will be subsequent on our bulletin, but for now it is a new year, a new month, in a new day. Welcome to 2025, a long anticipated and a lot of expectations again counting down. And then when you're back to the country, President Tinubu is saying things will get working again in 2025. 2024 was really a tough economic year in Nigeria, and the president has given his reassurance again that 2025 will get better. And just in the words of the Senate President, Nigeria was in a large support prior to Tinubu's coming into office, and Tinubu is trying to make all of these reforms to get Nigeria working again. Many have said that 2025 will be a great year, and of course we are joining their voices and the wishes of many to say we just want Nigeria to work, we want a better economy, we want a better system, and of course 2025 can't give us all of that. I mean, a lot of expectation we have for 2024 was cut short. And now the belief is that 2025 is going to work again. We don't have to go again, hit it again, go to it, face it, encounter it, and see what you can get out of 2025. It's just the beginning of the year, the beginning of the month, and then you begin to count the new things that are going to come forward towards the year 2025. And a lot of expectation, and you will not be left out for the year. Welcome. This is Global Morning Live from the nation's capital. This morning we're taking a look at what are the developments so far coming into the rest of the countries, and of course the highlights of today. I'm just being joined this morning, and of course gracing the screen on the first day of the year 2025 is probably the first analyst. Yusuf is live here on the show to look at all our issues in the nations and look at the papers we have for you this morning and catch up what is really interesting. Good morning, Yusuf, and thanks so much for making our time to be here with us this morning.
Yeah, good morning and happy New Year.
Yeah, happy New Year. A lot of perception about the New Year, and we just get to look at what it means. How do you feel, when you look at the things we went through for the year 2024?
Well, 2024 was a tough year, and I just hope that we have something new coming, something, I mean, the new year comes with, despite the suffering, a lot of people have hopes, a lot of people have, I've just called it hope, that things will get better, basically. But then 2024 was a seriously rough ride for Nigerians.
It looks like the government has there are a lot of projections to get things working in 2025. Are you seeing from those angles? Is it just a rhetoric hearing? Because we've had those words, we've had those promises, but it looks like the confidence of Nigerians, have been lost in respect to believing that. But for President, he said the projections and the reforms of taking will begin to see the impact for 2025. Do you find means or meaning to all of those considerations?
Well, as it is now, I would say there isn't so much to hold on to as far as the masses are concerned, and the realities too are concerned. Primarily, what I'd say is we are at a point where unless as Nigerians we begin to see things practically, say like where everybody is a doubting Thomas. Yes, so we need to put our fingers there and feel the piercing, feel the sides before people believe anything, because from the very onset, I think I've said it, that when you roll out harsh policies, especially anti-masses policies, and continue telling them it will pay off, and it's been more than a year and nothing has paid off yet. I think it's quite dangerous to just expect people to hope that things will get better. So let us just hope that things get better, but there is nothing to hold on to except we begin to see things.
We begin to see more really the rhetoric and the words. And of course, that's the words of Yusuf. But we'll just get to go on a very quick break, everyone. And once we return from the break, we'll be looking at what the papers has for us this morning. What are the big story? What are the big conversation? What are you expecting? And of course, we're bringing to you the national values just after this break. Please stay tight. I'll be right back. Welcome back, and many thanks for still staying with us here on the morning show. We're looking at the Punch newspaper, beginning for you this morning, bringing to you the headlines. It says a New Year message. Tinubu promises massive food production, 15% inflation in 2025. That's from the Punch newspaper. Right after that story says President pledges better access to credit. At all highs, 1 trillion economy, political tax, federal government on insecurity and others. Promises about massive food production, 15% inflation in 2025. Yusuf, I would love to say, issues of food, hunger was real in 2024, and those are really concerned. If Nigeria, with the large farms we have, spaces for us to cultivate, why were we having this out of food consideration? And be looking at the massive investment, or would I say investment enough, of agricultural sector. It looks like we've not really had, to yield more, tackle the issues of food. We call the last administration said, enough of what better, bringing in food and rise to the Nigerian market. Let's begin to see how we can cultivate our own. Looking inward, do you feel that policy was workable, and what could be the driving force for fighting this inflation?
Well, I'll tell you that one, for the most part, I think the middle belt produces most of the food we consume, basically. And for decades, or for more than a decade, I'd say, due to insecurity, almost 40% of those farmlands are not cultivated, because I could cite many examples of people who could actually farm but can't harvest, or people who can't even go to their farms. There are so many of such. I've been to a number of communities like that, whether on the plateau, in Kaduna, Benue, and all of that. So you have a scenario where, first of all, where the supplies are coming from, nothing is happening there. So what we've been enjoying so far is just the carryover. The impact of that will likely be felt this year, because unlike how it was, where, for example, when you have grains and beans, that the sales, how cheap it is, the peak is usually between October, November, December, or September, October, November, and all of that. Now you find people keeping it just for themselves to eat, unlike when you go to markets and you find grains and all of that. So, but massive investment in agriculture has mostly been at the propaganda stage, right from the time of Buhari and all, because it hasn't reflected. We don't see anything different from what we've had under the military and all of that. The peasant farmers primarily supply the markets. That's basically it. So whatever it is that affects the peasant farmer basically would affect what we enjoy. And we would look at there's a good tendency, unfortunately, for the farming. Yes.
He has pledged for about better access to credit, and we've been seeing these issues about farming. Sometimes investment in access to this credit, the allow access to boost agriculture, and it's still a major problem outside that of insecurity.
Yes. So, like I said, whether or not there is insecurity, I can assure you that 80-90% of what we consume locally in Nigeria comes from peasant farmers. That's the problem. We haven't actually been mechanized in that sense. The percentage of people practicing that kind of agriculture are just negligible to a large extent. So when you find government telling you there is heavy investment in agriculture and all that, it simply means there are people who have made it a business to engage in that, not primarily because they want to supply food. So when they tell you there's access to credit, everybody is poor. I know people that would access those credits and basically pay their rent, pay off debts and all of those things, not necessarily because they're farmers. And that basically is where the problem comes from. So 80% of what we consume comes from peasant farmers, and I can assure you nothing gets to them in the real sense.
A lot of concerns to be worried about. And of course, we just hope that this new year will be different approach to getting some of these issues resolved, because we can't continue doing something over and over again and expect a different result. That is it from the new year message of the president from the Punch newspaper. Well, let's see get other stories right on the Punch. 2027 opposition can't unseat Tinubu without measure, says the PDP chairman. Domagun, acting chairman of PDP, is saying that opposition cannot unseat President Tinubu without the merger coming together for 2027. Yusuf, I mean, last time we had a conversation about the state of opposition. We were looking at how strong is the opposition in Nigeria. There are pointing fingers to ruling party, there are pointing fingers to all of this concern. But for Domagun to say we need merger to try President Tinubu, would you say that it's workable? Because looking at 2023, PDP split it. You know, you saw Peter Obi going to this way, Kwankwaso going to the other way, Tiku also leading the other way. Even within the parties, after the primaries, you know, the whole sort of escalated. How would you see merger working in Nigeria? Because it looks like everybody wants to also lead their way and their camps.
The truth is, there is no opposition, unfortunately. What we have redefined what opposition is in Nigeria. The opposition should be born out of a desire to fix things, but what you have are power-hungry politicians, and that is the reason why,
after the next election.
Yes, that is why we don't have an opposition. Primarily, the APC redefined what opposition is. So when you find people coming together and deciding to step their interest back to come together, the main aim, the end of it all, is to get power. It's not to make any serious change, and we have seen it over the past decade, you know, with the ruling party. Now, what you have are a group of people feeling entitled to the presidency. You understand what I'm saying? If there was an opposition, I can assure you that there are quite a number of policies that would not have passed. An example is people keep talking about tax. They said this, they said tax reform and all of that. Why are they angry about it? Where was everybody when the price of PMS was moved from 140 to 1,100? Who was making any issue out of it? Everybody was quiet about it. There is no opposition. There are a whole lot of things that have passed simply because there is no opposition. So opposition now doesn't check the government. Opposition just puts heavyweights together to get power, and that basically is where we are having the serious issues with. The reason why I said there is no opposition and there is a tendency a merger may not do anything is simply because the people in power have employed the same tactics. So they are immune to the same mechanism you're going to put. Everything now lies in the hands of Nigerians, and with the crop of politicians we have, I don't really know who you could entrust power to, especially with those hungry for power. And that's why I say to you, the definition of opposition now makes it difficult to fix things, because everybody has his eyes on power, not for any particular thing, but as an end in itself. I want to be Mr. President, and that basically is where.
So literally they're all the same. Even though they move from this part to the other part.
That's right, to a large extent.
A lot of concerns from the merger of opposition saying, PDP acting chairman saying, we need to come together to seat President Tinubu for 2027 election. Many analysts have said, what are the statistics, what are the numbers, what are the strengths, what are the considerations to really get this done? But we'll continue to follow the news and bring you what that update means. That is on the page 10. You can get from the vendor and read more details about that headline. Federal government invites Nigerian leader for talks to douse tension. That was in page 29 of the Punch. A lot of concern looking at the tensions in Nigeria. Federal government are trying to make moves to invite some leaders to see what we can. Have some conversation about the leaders of different regions. But the many questions will be, talking to leaders, would that resolve the issues in the nations? Why don't we pay attention to addressing the concerns of better Nigerians? August last year Look at we just describing August last year as last year. So literally, last year August we saw bad governance protests erupted in the nation, which was due to hunger, bad governance, and all of these consideration. And afterwards, many are still asking, as the government begin to address the agitations and the complaints of those protesters, as they've been able to have roundtable discussions as promised. These are where a lot of Nigerians are still putting their eyes on. But for federal government to just make some move to bring leaders to talk, just to guide the tension, would not fix the issue, would not completely address that. But 2025, we are looking very clearly to know how government will begin to do things differently to get things workable. And now we also have Nigeria on life support when Tinubu took over. Advice coming from the Senate President of Party on page 29, Nigeria on life support when Tinubu took over. Yusuf, issues many have described that. The economy was in a worse state. The economy wasn't working. We couldn't continue to pay subsidy and all of that. And for some person, we said it wasn't a life support. It means that it's something that if you don't take an action this way, if you don't do it this way, it means that it's not going to break again. And those are asking, would that statement better describe the state of the nation as at the time when President Tinubu took over? Or does it mean that if we had another person to be the president, there would have been more result other than saying it wasn't a life support?
Well, Nigeria went into that, I would say it went into ICU. From the second tenure of Buhari, let me put it that way. When he was tried, when he was tested, and when he failed. But for one reason or the other, he was given another chance. So, Godswill Akpabio may not be wrong if he said so, that Nigeria, the country, was in life support, because we have never experienced poor economic policies, stagnation, and the mess that we experienced then. Unfortunately, it was only a change of guard of the same brigade. Unfortunately, it's the same party, the same philosophy, ideology, and all of that, possibly different, modus operandi. Now, when he says so, the question you want to ask yourself is, who did they take power from? It's the same ruling party doing the same thing. You would remember that the first 4 years of the APC in power, it was still in opposition. Okay? I have a problem as a president. You are the opposition. You've criticized and criticized until you've taken power, and you've spent your first tenure still being in the opposition, because every failure is 8 years of 16 years of mismanagement, and that was the song they sang. And Nigerians still gave them a second chance, and they messed the economy up. Now what we have is the same people blaming each other over the same thing. So yes, I would agree with them. It's a factual, it's a true submission that Nigeria, everybody we have mastered, the means of making excuses for everything. When you come in and you mess something up, you create a good narrative to make sure that the person that came before you messed it up before he left. We were at more over a decade ago, we were on a certain path where we were only going to become competitions to countries like the US and China on the African continent. And that was basically where Nigeria was headed. Unfortunately, that has been completely destroyed. We've been taken almost 2, 3, 4 decades back as far as our economic development is. Yeah.
A lot of concern right there, where we do have things begin to take shape. Wrap it up here on the Punch newspaper. We have make holders discuss to buy 95% power generation. To arrest for the flooding Canada-based Nigerian of 110 million naira. That is on page 5 of the Punch newspaper. Australians, Chinese, Koreans open New Year celebrations. Right there, the pictures displayed on the front page of the Punch newspaper. And just moving over to this day newspaper has a next paper this morning. On the front page of this day, This as aftermath of the year unveiled today, these awards honor links out tomorrow. 12 and recent years, President Bola Tinubu is the man of the year. That's coming from the editors of this newspaper. You can see the face of the President Ali placed right there on the front page of this day with the caption, "Courageous, audacious, and unafraid to take hard decisions." That makes this to honor President Tinubu as the man of the year. I mean, Yusuf. Courageous, audacious, and unafraid to take hard decisions. The government have been portraying that they took the hard decision, but no government would have had the capacity or the courage to confront removing subsidy, taking all of this reform just on the first 2 years of government. That any other government would have wanted to get a ticket again and get the chance again for second term before taking such an action. It shows that this is not the government that is really after the next election. They just want to get things right, and that's why they had to take the hard decision. And yes, it is tough enough, it is hard enough, because this is what the president also said to Nigerians. Your sacrifice so far and in months ahead will be in vain. Your sacrifice so far and in months ahead will be in vain. So it means that there's an advanced sacrifices that Nigerians still have to do. But the president is saying it's not going to be in vain. I have to take the decision of removing the subsidy. I have to take the decision of floating the naira, and all of those considerations. Would you say that this is out of courage, this is out of audacity, this is out of unafraid to take hard decisions, just as been described by this said?
Well, when you talk about being resilient, bold, audacious, taking tough decisions, I always ask to whose good, basically. When you say you've taken tough decisions that other presidents were afraid to take, the question is of what economic importance, of what economic benefits are those decisions to the masses? Because the whole concept of governance is to make life easy for people collectively. Now, I would have also said he was bold, even if it negatively impacted us. But were those his decisions? They were not his decisions. They were decisions of foreign interests. The World Bank. I think you remember when a woman from the World Bank says they asked President Tinubu to remove subsidy because it only benefited the rich. And so clearly you find a situation. The point I'm trying to make is, as far as you are not a man of your own will, which frankly speaking we could count the number of African presidents that run the affairs of their country on their own, but everybody is a puppet. There is somebody they are answering to at one point or the other, and the major economic decisions that African presidents take come from these people. And what they do is they fine-tune the economy to benefit them. And basically, they have stooges, they have puppets that basically unroll these decisions. Because it doesn't make any sense. Like, I think I gave an example. I said if we decide to put out a certain policy that makes things tough, everybody would endure it with the hope that it is going to produce something positive. But it doesn't. We took out what the so-called subsidy, but at the end of the day we're paying way more than whatever has been. I remember when Buhari came to power, he said the same thing and ended up paying far more than what the whole of the 16 years of the previous administration they spent spent on subsidy. So basically something is not right. So when people say he has taken a tough decision, I keep wondering of what value is that? It's not a tough decision. A tough decision would have been criminals going to hell, to jail. A tough decision would have been putting an end to terrorism. A tough decision would have been people who have stolen money, that when you release them, they go back to their village and people welcome them as heroes. Have them arrested, recover these monies. A tough decision would be anybody with a history of criminality should not be in your government. A tough decision would be senators earning 5 million, senators being responsible for their accommodation, senators being responsible for all of the list of SAs, PAs, SSAs, PPA, and whatever it is they call them. Those are tough decisions. But when the decision comes to the helpless people, the oppressed, the negativities of those decisions go to the oppressed people, while the ruling class is fully insulated. It just doesn't make any sense. It's just nonsense. That's basically it. There is nothing to talk about that.
And leaders across the party have felt good competent in the new year message after all of this concern. And just as Yusuf had described about the hard decision, many have described this government to have the courage to take, but no other government would have taken it. Well, at what extent is all of these decision taken? And who is at the receiving end, which are definitely the Nigerian people. And he is saying that your sacrifices so far in a month will be in vain. Will be in vain as a way of still communicating hope, because one thing about world government will tell you that they have to continue to communicate hope. Hope is important. So for 2025, many Nigerians who were struggling for 2024 just be optimistic, hopeful. Things will get to work. He said that the dollar will be better at 1,500, and it looks like all of these indicators will be working, and it will be in vain. So he acknowledges where Nigerians are, the suffering, the sacrifices Nigerians have put so far in the last 18 months of his government. And if May 29 this year will make him 2 years in office, just 2 years after, the those are really accepting, that is about 50% of your stay in office. Can we say that the vain, as he said, it will be in vain? It means that things will begin to work.
Pegging the dollar at 1,500, I think it's just. I mean,
the next dollar at around 700 or thereabouts.
It's a painful situation. I think. When I look at the faces of the key players of this government and I try to picture the things they did in the past, it's just pathetic. And like I said, once your economic policies are not born from, the local reality, nothing is ever going to work. It's not possible to have experts from the World Bank, from all of these organizations that enslave Africans with loans. There will never come a day when a single policy they will suggest to you will bring you out of any recession or any economic hardship. It has never happened in any part of the world. Possibly it may happen in countries that share similar interests. Say if a country in Europe like Germany, like Italy, and all of those things have economic issues, it's a different thing. It's a different way they address it. Birds of the same feather, but not on the African continent. So once your economic expertise, once your decisions, your policies are not born from the reality on ground, it won't make any sense. Is it that it's not possible to sell, to have maintained the price of fuel or even sell it for lower? It's very much possible. But there's somebody that always tells you, do this so that this will work, do this so that this will work. It doesn't work. Okay? When you look at, I think, even though I haven't read the book, but I've listened to a couple of his, interviews, the economic hitman. Basically, what they do is clear. We've seen it played out in many African countries, in many third world countries. You come in, you roll out policies, you bring in loans, you feed the ruling class. Everybody wants to make money, and they begin to feel like elites. They could shake hands with big presidents and all of that, but it all goes to the masses. It shifts the burden. When somebody says, I've taken off fuel subsidy, it's not that it has been removed. The payment of it has been taken off the shoulders of government and has been placed on the dying masses, and that basically is it. So we are still paying for it. So when you say things will get better, we will never cease to be hopeful, but optimistic, especially with those in power, it's a very, very, very difficult thing. I know people that practically will tell you, I don't know what to eat, and they mean that literally, So everybody is poor. Those those that were supposed to be in the middle class that could help 2, 3, 4 different children with school fees, help one uncle here and there, help with medical bills and all. Everybody is just struggling to survive. So you're either in there is no middle class. You're either in the political class, either as an elected politician or an in-law of a politician or the son of a politician, or you are a poor person. That basically is where we are at.
What does it need to bridge that gap?
Yes, something has to be done, and what has to be done would have to be a reversal of certain key policies, because they were never in the interest of Nigeria or Nigeria.
Because inflation has made a lot of Nigerians more poorer.
Yes,
compared to before.
It has never worked anywhere. You manipulate your currency if you are a productive economy. The reason is, once it gets out of hands, you can address it. But we consume everything. As fertile as our soil is, we import a lot of things. So, I mean, why do you want to play that game? Why would you even do that? It didn't make sense. Even the past president was equally at a position where he could do that. And I think that was one of the reasons he gave. He said, we are not that productive to toil with our currency. And he was right. Okay? But this one believed it was cowardice, so he is the bold one that just took that decision, and this is where we are. So as it is now, we are at the mercy of whoever it is that rules out those policies. And why I will tell you that I will never refer to him as a tough man, as an audacious man, is simply because he is just acting out the script of big financial institutions, the World Bank, and that's just it. Yeah.
If we have Dangote refinery in operation, Port Harcourt refinery in operation, one refinery in operation, those that are celebrating that milestone, that this is what many government couldn't, in the past couldn't fix up, and this government understanding how they want to promote free markets. Because the president said, I love open market, I love free market, willing buyer, willing seller, so that be out of the competition, the prices will reduce drastically. Do you feel that that's the way for 2025? We are having these refineries in operations.
Well, like we have become people that are easily fooled, easily lied to, easily manipulated. First with the Dangote refinery. People felt, okay, well, fine, we have a businessman who's doing this, and it simply means we will buy PMS for less, because all of the stories we were given, you export the crude, you import it,
We saw that Naira.
At the end of the day, it was celebrated, and people said, thank God. And months later, the man is looking for crude oil to buy. The man is traveling out of the country to look for crude oil. And then the man has become an oil marketer, like every other person that will just build a filling station and stuff. So what exactly is happening? I don't really know if products have started leaving that place. So when you tell us that Warri refinery, has kick-started, Nigerians wants to see something, because you can't keep talking, you can't make the successes of your government to start and end at the propaganda level. Everybody could say anything. So what has the Dangote refinery done? Nothing. As at the time it was about to start rolling, people said, no, it's not exactly, it doesn't mean that it will sell for less. He's just a businessman like every other person. So he's in a country where there is crude oil and everything. So the simple common sense thought is that he gets the crude oil, or the government gives him crude oil, he sells and all of that, some form of arrangement like anybody would do with, any businessman. But then it turns out he has to look for crude oil from elsewhere. No NNPC is not selling for me. No NNPC is selling for me. Okay, no, I'm lifting products on. So whether that refinery of his is just like any other filling station or some reservoir where he's just a normal marketer, or is supposed to refine crude and sell, it doesn't make sense. So until the masses go to the filling station and notice something is going back to normal, nobody believes anything. I don't believe anything.
The price has to drop to reflect that there's a growth, there's a refinery.
So it's not about being consistent, just the way we're doing with the dollar, telling people that the dollar will be pegged at 1.15. Are we supposed to celebrate? Or waking up in the morning for something we got for 140 and it sells for 1,100. or 1,200, and someone telling us we are going to peg it at 1,015 naira. Am I supposed to celebrate that? It doesn't make any sense. It's just an insult on common sense, unfortunately. Yeah.
A lot of concerns, right, Yusuf. But let's get to other papers this morning. The Guardian. On the front page of The Guardian, we have eyes on key economic indices as Tinubu promises new dawn. And as on page 6, we've already had a conversation about transportation costs reduced drastically. Fuel of the PMS, the price of the PMS as well dropped from where it is today at about 1,100, 1,060, out of that too. Even we had Dangote said we will sell at 986, but we are yet to find out those prices in away from NNPC. We are yet to find all of those other prices at the other retail stations. That is on front page of the Guardian newspaper over key economic indices as Tinubu promises new dawn for 2025. On the resident doctors begin indefinite strike over welfare. That's page 7. Bauchi governor denies threatening Tinubu, insists on stance against tax reforms. That's on page 3 of the Guardian newspaper. I recall a few days ago, Bala Mohammed, the governor of Bauchi State, had made some comment that, look, Mr. President, we have to listen to what the Northerners are saying. We visit that bill, a lot of this concern, and the presidency has responded. And now the governor is back again, insisting that he's still having his stance on that tax reform. There's a need for all of this public consultation. But you see, we'll look at, we've seen a lot of explanation about tax reforms, but it will, address the issue of multi-taxation. It will also increase those who haven't been paying taxes to start paying tax, and of course those who are earning low, be exempted from tax. All of those good things, many have said, look, it looks like this is a fantastic bill, but people are not seeing it from the other end. What concern of many people are over the derivation, the issue of VAT, and all of those concerns. Would you say the continuous rejection or back and forth between the North and the government of the day, it doesn't look real, it doesn't look politically motivated?
Well, first of all, the thing about the tax reform bill, it's not new. These things we do, they are not new. They've been played out in many countries. And it's just our own turn. But the truth is, first, it's to take what you refer to as the audacious economic, policies. You begin to roll them out as the tough guy, and that basically is what the World Bank, all those economic hate men, basically the impression they give you. A while after you take that decision, it basically destroys the purchasing power of the masses. It doesn't just cripple them, but as a sovereign state, it cripples you as well. And that is why you realize that there is huge borrowing, huge influx of money borrowed from outside. But then you want to look at what it has changed locally, and you cannot find it. The simple reason is because those who have a piece of the pie are those in government. And then these same people who borrow you the money, it ends up with their own companies, with their own local agents here. So whatever gap it has created, they equally suggest to you that the way out is to tax these dying masses to make up for whatever it is you are doing. Because actually, if you keep borrowing and borrowing and borrowing, and you claim you are still saving and saving and saving from the removal of subsidy, why are you trying to tax people? You understand? And the third world countries that have fallen into this trap are the masters at taxation. The ones doing well understand very well we will have to create a certain environment for businesses to thrive. They understand where they subsidize. Nobody subsidizes like these countries. The simple reason is because they understand how to keep the economy running. But somebody leaves his country where he understands how to subsidize agriculture. In the US, they subsidize it. They get to the point of making sure that the farmer is saved from the responsibility of suffering. I did a literature review, and I saw how they made sure that you just don't get all of the things you need to farm. you get the right places to sell them, and all of those things. They make sure they cover whatever losses could have come as a result of anything. And so they become buoyant. And people are not eager to come to the big cities to say, because I could be in the countryside, I could do my business, and I'm as close to the government as anything. And then they came to Nigeria, I think, when the Africa Growth Opportunity Act came. And part of the things they said was subsidy should be removed in agriculture. And the question is, why are you coming from a place where you subsidize agriculture and you're advising me to remove subsidy as a poor man that is trying to be rich? So my opposition with the taxes is simply because it will only choke or suffocate the masses, and that basically is it. But the major problem we are having with certain governors, especially from the north, that are objecting it is simply because it's been politicized. Like I said, the notion of opposition in this country is not to fix things, but is to make sure you capitalize on the weaknesses of a president to find ways of getting him out of power. We saw it play out in 2015. It's unfortunately most of those things are not born out of sincerity. And I would always ask, where were you when the price of PMS was moved like 10 times over a few weeks or a few months? And why was everybody quiet? Then why should you have a problem with taxes?
A good point, Yusuf. Let's begin to look at the Guardian very quickly because of time. Partial compliance address part payment of 250 billion USD debt as first and expired. That is the protection coming from Central Bank of Nigeria right there on the reports you can find on page 15 of the Guardian newspaper. Adelabu blames vandalism for failure to increase power generation to 6,000 megawatts. That is coming from the Ministry of Power. Nigeria is still having to struggle with the 4,000 megawatts thereabouts. Is having concern about what is the reasons for this factor for us not to really increase our megawatts capacity to 6,000, blaming that of vandalism. Again, issues of insecurity is still a major concern, right? But we do hope that the government will begin to tackle and also increase their capacity to protect some of this infrastructure away from vandalizers. We also have our investors made 22 trillion naira from Nigerian stock market in 2024, despite the firm's exit. Kudos to some investors in the Nigerian stocks market. Right, troops killed about 10,937 terrorists and arrest 12,538 in a year. That's coming from Nigerian troops for killing over 10,993 terrorists and arresting over 12,538 just in the report for last year. Coming right there, a gala of defection to ruling party Hot Democracy. The group CHRCL runs, as in page 3. Discourse to offtake 95% of allocated energy of first next sanctions. Coming from the Guardian newspaper. Very quickly, let's just react to this concern about insecurity. Terrorists have killed, their troops have killed 10,937 terrorists and have arrested 12,538 in a year. The president has given kudos to the security chiefs, saying that it looks that the security of the teacher is getting better. People can now move from one state to the other compared to the last administration. But it looks that the good things are beginning to happen. But we want to go to the Northwest. Nakora group of those in Michigan, anywhere we are trying to point fingers to Niger to be the reason behind that group disturbing Central State and Kebbi State and thereabouts. What would be the projection about the management of the security architecture so far in a nation? Because we are still having issues of vandalism. In the other time, Kaduna group was attacked and it caused blackout for some total state in the north. All of that was a major concern. They're saying, you have not done enough job. Who are those protecting those infrastructure? Many of the insecurity problems are still there. Kidnapping is still at the high side. We saw that 2.2 billion spent for ransom. People had to pay for the family members kidnapped. We also saw this case in 2024. But if you have that over this number have been killed, does it mean that things are working in terms of fighting insecurity in the nation?
You know, with insecurity in Nigeria, it has become a very lucrative enterprise, if I would use that word. So lucrative that rather than eradicate insecurity, we have created a comfort zone for it, so we just manage it. And that is why we are rolling out these figures. What we want to hear is, we've eliminated this group, we've eliminated this group, we've eliminated this group. And it's quite typical that it is in third world countries where you have governments that play with terrorists. Okay? First, you can't say you're having victory over terrorism. You would notice that you have governors that are more eager to pardon terrorists than to eliminate them. Why should you do that? I mean, it happened in Kaduna State. How would I feel as a man living in my village, knowing well that somebody is raping my wife in the bush, and I'm watching TV and shaking hands with the same people? Are they going to point where those abducted are? Are they going to say, this is our camp, this is our camp, this is our camp, and in a day or two we will know that they have killed 80 of them here, 200 of them there, and all of that, and they have brought people back? No, that's not what happens. Okay? So when you come out and say you have killed 10,000, well, that would be good, or that may be fair, but are we eliminating terrorism? Are we eliminating the issue of insecurity, or are we managing it? And that's the unfortunate scenario. So as it is in Nigeria, we've been put in a place where we want to manage it. So it's not about eliminating it, it's about managing it. It's more like you are in a marriage relationship and there is infidelity. So that is not supposed to be, because the bed should be kept pure, sacred. But then you decided to come to terms with the fact that, okay, you could cheat and then we resolve it, you could cheat and then we resolve it. And so you can boldly say, we have agreed to visit 5 councillors last year, and we visited 5 councillors last year, and we haven't broken a home. But the question is, have you stopped the infidelity? And the answer is no. So unless we wage a war, and I don't want to believe that this war is beyond the Nigerian army. Why I'm saying this to you is because it is unfair when these victories are rolled out and you have people in the rural areas crying, someone telling you about his wife, a wife talking to you about her husband, a child telling you about his parents and all of this. When you go around, you find these things happening. There was still an attack around Christmas on the plateau. It's just that we've gotten to a point where we've employed propaganda to sell our victories rather than actual achievements. So yes, I give kudos to the Nigerian army. They fight, they pay the ultimate price for doing that. But I think the idea should move from managing insecurity to eliminating them. And you would have to be ruthless about it. And that is where also tough decisions should come. When you tell me you eliminated them, and you can boast and say, travel this road and tell me if you hear a gunshot that is not from the military, then I am not president, or I am not this general. Then we could talk about that. But a scenario where terrorism looks like child's play. In one place you are saying we've killed 10,000, in another state they are being given state ceremony that somebody is pardoning them because they have repented. It doesn't make sense. Yes.
A very good and big one right there. Yusuf, the public affairs analyst, always adding voice to the conversation of the state of the nations and tracking some of this story and doing justice to all this morning on the newspaper review. Thanks so much for joining us and beginning your new year with us here at Global Television. Everyone, that's what we're wrapping up on the newspaper review. Up next is the end news. It brings you the letters and of course the updated news for you this morning. Do stay with us. We'll be right back. to all our viewers in Nigeria and around the world to Global AM News on Global Television, coming to you live from the nation's capital, Abuja. I am Anthony Momodu. A quick reminder that Global Television is on DSTV channel 365 and free to air on MyConsarts. Happy 2025. The federal government has been commended for reversing the 5-year ban on mineral exploration activities in Zamfara State. Stakeholders in the mining sector made the recommendation in a separate interview in Abuja. The Minister of Solid Minerals Development, Dr. Bello Alake, had recently announced the reversal of the ban on mining exploration in Zamfara, citing significant improvement of security situation in the state after the federal government had banned all forms of mining exploration activities in 2019 following alarming reports of banditry and its link to illegal mining. Disengaged police officers from courses 33, 34 and 35 of the Nigerian Police Academy have appealed to President Bola Tinubu to direct the Inspector General of Police IGP Kayode Betuku to comply with a National Industrial Court judgment ordering their reinstatement. The officers who claim they were unlawfully retired despite not reaching the statutory 35 years of service or the 60-year age limit, had challenged their disengagement at the National Industrial Court in Abuja. In April 2022, the court ruled in their favor, directing the IGP, the Police Service Commission, and the Secretary of the Police Force to reinstate them. However, the officers allege that the judgment remains unenforced. The Inter-Party Advisory Council has called on Nigerians to unite to deepen democracy and build a better nation for present and future generations. National Chairman of the Council, Yusuf Bantai, in a statement highlighted the resilience of Nigerians and the urgent need to address key national issues in 2025. The Council also announced plans to intensify its roundtable discussions, bringing together stakeholders and experts to address critical national issues and propose solutions to deepen democracy, pledging to continue leading efforts to ensuring good governance, hold leaders accountable, and promote sustainable development. The Nigerian Labour Congress NLC has employed government at all levels to prioritize the welfare and well-being of the citizens in 2025. This came as it insisted that the federal government should withdraw its present tax bill before the National Assembly for all key national stakeholders to be part of the process. In its New Year message to Nigerians, especially workers, President of the NLC, Joe Ajaero, said organized labor would step up its battle for an upward wage review for workers due to mitigate the high cost of living. Doctors in Ondo State, under the Association of Resident Doctors, University of Medical Sciences Teaching Hospital, Ondo chapter, have begun an indefinite strike over alleged poor working conditions and welfare packages. The resident doctors had staged a protest against the management of the state-owned teaching hospital, accusing it of ignoring their demands. The doctors highlighted several issues fueling the industrial action, including illegal salary deductions, exorbitant taxes, and the non-payment of hazard allowance. The Chief of Air Staff, Air Marshal Hassan Abubakar, has embarked on a strategic engagement in Doha, Qatar, in a bid to boost the operational efficiency and technological capabilities of the Nigerian Air Force. The visit underscores the Air Force's commitment to leveraging global partnership to address national security imperatives and strengthen its air power capabilities. This was according to a statement by the Nigerian Air Force headquarters. The military high command says wanted amateur terrorist commander Bello Turji, who recently threatened to attack some communities in Zamfara State unless his brother and others arrested by the troops are released, is a dead man walking. This is just as the military disclosed that those disputing the military's precision bombing of the Lakurawa terrorist enclaves, killing their members and collaborators, are engaging in terrorist propaganda. Director of Defense Media Operations, Major General Edward Buba, who made this known, said between January and December of 2024, over 1,000 terrorist leaders and commanders, as well as their replacements, have been eliminated in military operations. The federal government has expressed readiness to engage in dialogue with Niger following recent statement by the country's National Council President, Abdurrahman Tijani. This is contained in a statement by the Minister of Foreign Affairs, Yusuf Tuga. He said Nigeria opted for dialogue as the foundation for sustainable solutions and will not take any actions that undermine Niger's sovereignty and territorial integrity by Economic Community of West African States, ECOWAS principles. The Nigerian Customs says the Nigerian Customs Service says it has seized 12 containers laden with illicit drugs with duty-paid value of 20.3 billion naira at the Onne port in Rivers State. The Customs Area 2 Controller Mohammed Babangende stated this while briefing newsmen at Onne. Babangende stated that 3,461 pieces of sanitary ware fittings, 840 pieces of chili cutter, and 153 cartons of TVS rubber were used to conceal the illicit drugs in the 12 containers, adding that the command generated a total revenue of 634 billion as at December 31st, 2024, which is higher than the 618 billion revenue target given to it for the year. Governor of Imo State, Hope Uzodinma, has signed the 2025 appropriation bill into law, marking a significant milestone in the state's fiscal journey into the coming year. The bill, which was initially presented in December 2024 with an allocation of 755.6 billion naira, was reversed and approved at 807 billion naira by the Imo State House of Assembly during a special sitting. These adjustments, according to the House, reflect the state's development priorities. Global TV correspondent Amarachi Ibe reports from the Government House in Owerri.
The presentation of the revised 2025 appropriation bill by the Speaker of Imo State House of Assembly, Chike Olemgbe, along with other lawmakers, set the stage for Governor Hope Uzodinma to formally sign it into law. The bill's increment to 800 billion, as explained by the House Committee on Budget and Appropriation, aims to address the critical development needs of Imo State. The Speaker of the House, Chike Olemgbe, reaffirmed the Assembly's support for the governor, emphasizing the need for collaboration to drive economic growth.
On this premise, the House amended the total capital expenditure to now reach 694 billion 786,041,220 naira, bringing the total budget to 807,088,041,220 naira.
With the 2025 appropriation bill now signed into law, attention shifts to its implementation. Early rollout of projects and programs is expected to ensure the state meets its development targets for the year.
So with a total budget of 807 billion for the year 2025, it means that the opportunity for growth the opportunity for prosperity and the opportunity to create and bring into reality the new Imo State is by the corner.
From the Imo State Government House, Owerri, Amarachi Ibe, reporting for Global TV News.
The latest report from the United Nations, as estimated by World Dolometer, has predicted the population of Nigeria to reach 237,527,782 by the year 2025, an increase of 235,072,214 from the population recorded in December 2024. The data also disclosed an increase of 4,796,533 in population in the country between 2023 and 2024. According to the report, Nigeria ranks 6th in the list of countries and dependencies with population equivalent to 2.85% of the total world population. Rights organization Amnesty International has accused the military of trying to cover up the killing of citizens in Sokoto communities. Recall that the military had on December 25th carried out operations targeting the Lakurawa terrorists in Gidan Sama and Runtuwa communities in this Silame local government area of Sokoto State, which led to the death of no fewer than 10 citizens. The defense headquarters had said the citizens were killed by a secondary explosion from the logistic base of the Lakurawa terrorist group. In another development, the recent ambassador to Nigeria and the Economic Community of West African States, Usra Harabhab, has said that both countries share similar defense and security experiences and interests, even as they are working closely to deepen collaboration against terrorism. The ambassador, who is a retired Air Vice Marshal in the Indonesian military, said this in an interview in Abuja, noting that within 6 years of his duty tour in Nigeria and ECOWAS, he had deployed his military experiences to bear on ensuring that Indonesia's diplomatic military engagements were rooted in the sub-region. You're watching Global News live broadcast on Global Television, coming to you live from the nation's capital, Abuja. When Global AM News returns, pre-flight checks found no issues before South Korea air crash. We shall bring you details of that story as well as business and sports news right after the break. Please stay with us. Welcome back from the break. In business, Taiwo Oyedele, chairman of the Presidential Committee on Fiscal Policy and Tax Reforms, says efforts to engage state governors in consultations over the tax reform bills were met with consistent non-commitment. According to Oyedele, the committee reached out to the governors on 4 separate occasions, only to encounter a lack of cooperation. Oyedele emphasized that the level of engagement undertaken was unprecedented in its scope and inclusivity. The federal government has initiated 250 billion naira into the Ministry of Finance Incorporated for Real Estate Investment Fund. Government says the fund is designed to provide low-cost, long-term mortgage financing and stimulate economic growth through the housing sector. According to Mohammed Langwa, the Director of Information and Public Relations of the Ministry, presiding over the signing ceremony in his office in Abuja, Minister of Finance and coordinating Minister of the Economy, Wale Edun, said that the initiative will address Nigeria's housing finance gap by offering mortgages with repayment terms up to 25 years. The Nigerian Electricity Regulatory Commission has updated its performance monitoring framework for electricity distribution companies, DISCOs. The Commission, in a statement, said the updated framework will go into effect in the first quarter of 2025 and is described in Addendum 1 to the Order on Performance Monitoring Framework. The power sector regulator said the order will ensure compliance with the key performance indicators, KPIs, which include accountability by the DISCO's management, increased operational performance, improved energy delivery to customers, and customer satisfaction. Oil marketers and the Nigerian Midstream and Downstream Petroleum Regulatory Authority says the prices of refined petroleum products are to drop further following the commencement of operations at the Warri Refining and Petrochemical Company Limited. Dealers in downstream oil sector said competition in the space will now be stiffer as domestic refiners will be forced to reduce prices to get buyers. The Nigerian Navy says it is committed towards ensuring that the nation's daily crude oil production increases from 1.8 million barrels to 3 million barrels by December 2025 in line with the directive of President Bola Tinubu. Speaking at the flag-off ceremony of the Operation Delta Sanity 2 in Port Harcourt, the Chief of Naval Staff, Vice Admiral Emmanuel Ogala, said the directive of the President must be achieved. And moving to the foreign scene, Kiev says Russia had launched a barrage of drones and missiles across Ukraine, conceding that there were successful strikes in the east of the country and near the capital. Authorities did not elaborate on what had been hit, but in the wider Kiev region, the governor said debris from a downed projectile had damaged a private home and wounded a woman. The Ukrainian Air Force said Russia had launched 21 missiles of various types and 40 drones in the barrage, adding that 7 missiles and 16 unmanned aerial vehicles were downed. The United States unveiled sanctions against Iranian and Russian organizations, alleging that they had sought to interfere in the U.S. election. The groups targeted were the Cognitive Design Production Center, a subordinated organization of Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, and the Moscow-based Center for Geopolitical Expertise. U.S. acting under Secretary of the Treasury for Terrorism and Financial Intelligence, Bradley Smith, says the government of Iran and Russia have targeted their elections processes and institutions and sought to divide the American people through targeted disinformation campaigns. Beijing has hit back at accusations that a China state-sponsored actor was behind a cyber breach at the U.S. Treasury Department, calling the claims groundless. The Treasury, according to a letter to Congress, said the attack resulted in access to some of its workstations. The Treasury noted that the incident happened earlier in the month of December when the actor compromised a third-party cyber security service provider and could remotely access the workstations and some unclassified documents. South Korean authorities say they were investigating the role of a concrete barrier at the end of Muan Airport runway in the country's worst disaster, which killed 179 people as a Jeju Air jet crashed on landing. Officials and U.S. investigators, including from Boeing, were at the crash site in southwestern Muan as South Korea authorities have begun assessing 2 black boxes retrieved from the burned-out wreckage of the aircraft. Meanwhile, a pre-flight inspection of a Jeju Air passenger plane hours before it crashed in South Korea, killing 179 people, found no issues. The airline said nothing abnormal was noted with the landing there. The airline CEO Kim Yoo-bae told a news conference in Seoul as investigations continued into why the wheels were knocked down when it performed an emergency landing. Reports say South Sudan plans to resume pumping crude oil it hopes to export after fighting in neighboring Sudan ruptured a key pipeline earlier this year. The landlocked and impoverished country, vital oil had been shipped to global markets from Port Sudan on the Red Sea, with Khartoum taking a cut as a transit fee, but the pipeline was damaged in February. Clashes between Sudan's army and the paramilitary Rapid Support Forces dramatically denting the young nation's economy. And running into the world of sport, harrowing footage captured a near disaster at Los Angeles International Airport when a Delta flight nearly collided with a plane carrying the Gonzaga University's men's basketball team. The Gonzaga chartered Embraer ERJ-135, identified as Key Line Air Flight 563, came to an abrupt halt just in time as Delta Flight 471 in Airbus A321 barely down the runway and lifted off at full speed. World number 1 Aryna Sabalenka opened her season with a 6-4, 6-0 thrashing of Renata Zarazua at the Brisbane Invitational. After receiving a bye for the first round, it took Sabalenka just 63 minutes to beat Mexico's Zarazua and set up a third-round contest against Kazakhstan's Yulia Putintseva. Sabalenka starts the year as the top-ranked player for the first time in her career after winning the US Open in September. Also in tennis, Wimbledon doubles finalist Gabriela Dabrowski has revealed she had breast cancer surgery earlier this year, undergoing further treatment while she challenged for the sponsor biggest prizes. The 32-year-old Canadian, who is a 3-time major champion, was diagnosed in April. She wrote on her Instagram post that it is a privilege to be able to call herself a survivor. And that's how we quite a wrap on the Global AM News. I am Anthony Momodo. Compliments of the season. for staying with us here. Hot Club in the morning. We'll still continue to track the development for the new year 2025. Let's look at President Tinubu's New Year message. The president has spoken and has also promises that there will be massive food production by over 15% inflation in 2025. The president has shown Nigerians of the resolve to boost food production over the coming year and drugs to about 15% while strengthening the economy in the year 2025. He was speaking during the New Year message to the nation. He highlighted some economic growth indicators, including the lower fuel prices, the rising foreign reserves, and a stronger naira as signs of progress in 2024. And 2024 will continue into the 2025. He said that though 2024 poses numerous challenges to citizens and households, that he's very confident that this 2025, the new year, will bring brighter days. Economic indicators point to positive and encouraging the outlook for the nation. Fuel prices have gradually decreased, and we've recorded about foreign trade surpluses in these consecutive quarters of the year. The foreign reserve have risen, and naira has continued to be strengthened against the US dollar, bringing greater stability. That's what the president is saying in his good year and leaves a New Year message. He also said that Nigeria's stock market record growth and generated trillions of naira in wealth, having by the surge in the foreign investment reflected in renewed confidence in the country's economy. Now, nevertheless, the cost of food and essential drugs remain a significant concern for many Nigerian households for the past year. I acknowledge the persistent inflation and rising cost of these essentials, vying to intensify effort to reduce inflation from about 34.6% to 15%. All the reforms aimed at boosting food production and encouraging local manufacturing of drugs and medical supplies. Just instead of 2025, government is very committed to intensifying effort to lower these costs by boosting food production and promoting locally manufactured essential drugs and other medical supplies. He also said that they result in addition to reduce inflation from the current high of about 34% to about 15%. Of course, trusting that with God's help, they will achieve all of these and provide a relief for the people. Coming from the president for the new year policy to consolidate and further and increase access to credit for individuals and critical sectors of the economy to boost national output. In achieving this, the federal government will establish the National Credit Guarantee Company to expand the risk-sharing instrument for financial institutions and enterprises. The company is expected to start operation before the end of the second quarter in partnership with government institutions such as the Bank of Industry and the Nigeria Consumer Credit Corporation, the Nigeria Sovereign Investment Agency, and the Ministry of Finance incorporated with the private sector and the multilateral sector. The initiative will strengthen the confidence of the financial system and expand the credit access and support underserved groups such as women and youth. It will drive growth and reindustrialization and better living standard of the Nigerian people for the year. President Tinubu is also calling on the governors and local councils of the Southern for the local government area in Nigeria to align with the federal agricultural and tax reforms to seize economic opportunities. Quoting on the word of the president, trying to use the opportunity to look at how they can work closely to decentralize the policies of government, looking at the agricultural sector, how the state government can be involved in the state production, how the local government can also be involved also in driving the agricultural growth in Nigeria. So it's not just going to be a one man or just a federal government duty to tackle the agricultural challenges. The president is also extending hand, not just extending hand, reminding the governors they need to also play their own role from their respective state. Also reminding the local government the role the local government can play in getting these things done. The president had tried to underscore all of that in his New Year message, running forward to say that inflation will be reduced at 15%. The cost of drugs is because he has acknowledged the point that a healthy population translates to a wealthy economy. We can't talk of a wealthy economy without looking at the healthy population. The rising cost of drugs has also been a concern for the president, and the president said he's rising to the occasion for 2025. So we're looking at all of those concerns. And on the program this morning, I'll be joined by a medical practitioner who will be looking at 2025 budget and allocation to the healthcare sector. It looks like this government has so far prioritized over 2.48 trillion naira into the healthcare for the year 2025 budget. On the show this morning, we'll be looking at that, the broader perspective of the concern about the health workers in Nigeria. Because we can't talk of 2025, we can't talk of a new year without looking at how we can advance for a healthy population. Because when we have a healthy population, we're sure of people being contributing to the economy and having a stable economy for the nation. It's still a matter of concern, and as we continue to look at just as the promises of the president that will move down and things will begin to take shape. We can't continue to fight inflation from the current rate of 34% to over 15%. We'll drive agricultural development by setting up a credit scheme just to encourage farmers and the local government. The calling on the governors not just look at the federal government but also to participate in advancing the development from the agricultural sector so as to fight food inflation in Nigeria. It means that hunger was a major issue in 2024, and if we have all of these individuals putting hands in deck to drive some of this development, we're sure of having surplus of food for 2025, and that is what the president said. I'm very big on that. I'm tackling that, and of course resolving to address all of that issue which to him is a priority. On the show this morning, after the break, and once we return on the show, we'll be looking at the broader implications of the healthcare sector. What are the infrastructure like? What are we advancing? If the president said he's moving forward to resolve the issues of health in Nigeria for 2025, because for him, a healthy population also gets to work into contributing to a healthy, wealthy economy. On the show, we'll be joined by a medical practitioner. Of course, we'll be looking at all of these concerns and perspective for the year 2025. The 2025 is already promising. The 2025 is already showing signal of good fightings, because all over the world we saw a display of fireworks, and not just a firework, kind of a jubilation that came in from all over the world. People were jubilating, trying to signal the new year 2025. A lot of us recall that just this January, on the 20th of January, a new dawn will be happening in the United States of America. Trump will be swearing as the re-elected president of that country. Politically, a lot is on ground for 2025, and now when you're back to Nigeria, preparation will be ongoing for another cycle election for 2026. INEC are also proposing some reforms in their guidelines to see how they can be able to continue to give Nigeria good election and a better election. And just this year again, the president is on the midterm of his administration. 4 years administration, May 29, 2025, the president will be completing 2 years in office, and those are those that have the projection for looking at the midterm achievement of the president. And just for this month, now to May, many will be looking at all of the reforms of the president will be translated through the impacting and bettering the life of the people of Nigeria. We are Global Television continue to track and bring you the development, and of course we are just sharing, and of course sharing you, joining the voices to also encourage and sharing hope for the year 2025. It looks promising, it looks better. We can only keep in with the optimistic that things will definitely get to take shape and we will work for the better of all of us and our family members. So do want to sit down on the show, and once we return, we'll be looking at the healthcare infrastructure, the consideration of 2025 budget, what is it for the people. The president said, I'm prioritizing health. What does it really mean? Over 2.48 trillion naira have been allocated to the 2025 budget for the health sector. We're looking at that outside the break. Please do well to stay with us. I'll be right back. a lot of concerns regarding the state of the nation and the 2025 already looking promising. The president said, I will tackle the issues of food inflation and the health care as well, paying attention to the high cost of drugs already affecting many populations of the country. Looking at the protection of actually tackling addressing the issues of the food, scarcity of drugs and all of that. The president looks at, he's trying to prioritize that for 2025. He by also setting up a social credit scheme to addressing all of this issue to for farmers who have access to services to address food hunger and of course health, which is said is a priority for 2025. I'm joined this morning by the Northwest Capitalist leader and immediate past president of Nigeria Association of Resident Doctors of Zaria, Dr. Ajayi Abbas. He joins us very early this morning to advance this conversation looking at 2025 budget. Doctor, happy New Year and thanks so much for joining us on the show this morning.
Yeah, good morning. Thank you very much for
all right, Doctor. A lot of concern about the Senate of Health. We also look at the president for 2025 actually increased the sector, the health sector, getting 5.18% of 2025 budget, which is just approximately over 2.48 trillion naira. There are also a concern about the funding. Just today, although resident doctors are saying that they are going on a strike, we've also heard of many strikes for the past year, 2024, and that they are really having a concern. We wouldn't want to continue that way and that path for 2025. What is the major concern of doctors? What is the major concern of healthcare if we are having over 2.4 trillion a budget for 2025? Priority has been given to that sector, isn't it?
Yeah, so it's a good thing that for health in the 2025 budget. Obviously, we all know there's a thing. It's a thing to budget, and then it's a thing to implement what you budgeted for. The good thing is that the current Minister of Health is one who has introduced a lot of innovations in the health sector. Currently doing the EPS, the employer-based performance scheme, where people assess you based on your capacity and capability. There's also the introduction of local vaccine production and a lot of ways to improve indigenous pharmaceuticals production of medications, such that this foreign pharmaceutical companies, when they exit the country, doesn't really have much significant impact. So there's a lot of attempts at improving R&D and introducing a lot of these things into the health sector, which is something we appreciate as health workers, because there's a lot of difficulty getting medications. The patients are always complaining about the high cost of medications and drugs. Treatment itself is at an all-time, cost of treatment itself is at an all-time high. And despite the fact that health is subsidized in the country, a lot of indigent patients cannot afford healthcare services. So that's quite a significant strain. So we haven't talked about the fact that access, financial access to healthcare is difficult for the patients. There's also the issue of lack of access to other services, including surgical services, because of the lack of expertise, and that's pegged on the fact that most people are leaving the country. That's not just enough, but even the fact that we're not training enough of these skills. We don't have adequate access. For example, being a neurosurgeon, there's a limit to what most neurosurgeons can do in the country. There's only few hospitals have access to operating microscope. That is one of the major needs for neurosurgical practice in the country. Few people have access to, there's MRI services, but a lot of them are breaking down, and majority of time, access to ability to fix and repair these machines when they break down is a problem. So maintenance is an issue. a lot of, if you go around the country, if you check the Ministry of Health, they'll say they have MRI here, here, and here. But when you go down to where those facilities are available, they are not working, and that's the challenge. So you spent a lot of money to provide these facilities, and then sometimes they are not working, and sometimes the contractors and a lot of people who do this go on doing shady deals, and they bring in substandard equipment into the country. So those are and then this affects the health of the populace. So people are not even afraid to buy substandard products to use in the health sector, and that is very, 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 very unfair. So these are some of the things. So it's not just on the hands of the government. We need to do better in the next year coming. People need to be more accountable to the country, to themselves, and to ensure that things are done properly. And then takes us to the healthcare personnel themselves. We'll still continue to complain about the fact that our remuneration and our packages are very poor. They talked about an increase in minimum wage, and then we all just got a 40,000 naira flat increase. That will not. I go to work every day, including the weekends. An increase in 40,000 naira will not cover my full cost for more than a week out of the 4 weeks in a month. So, and then I have to feed my family, who I am almost always not around to see. So, and you're telling me that I should be comfortable. Of course, all the balance of money I'm getting, I'll gather it to go and work in another country that values my trade, or that values me more than the country I serve. If the average Nigerian doctor salary is not sufficient enough for him or her to survive for more than 2 weeks in a month, then that's not good enough. The country needs to do better. Arrears of increments in payments are not being paid. They've been promising they will pay the arrears of our common solution that was done in 2023. It's now going to 2 years now. Nothing has been done. We're still hearing all promises and promises. Our residency training fund has to come after a lot of struggle and fight. They'll pay. There is still a balance from 2 years ago. It's not been paid. So these are the issues that's affecting us welfare-wise. Our comments need to be properly reviewed. Our allowances need to be properly reviewed to be in tandem. Recently, after a lot of picketing, the British Medical Association and the NHS have come to an agreement with the British government, and they have increased their pay. Of course, and recently their allowances and their arrears were paid in full. So if that's and majority of Nigerian doctors are flooding to these countries, because these are countries where when you struggle and you fight, your system listens to you. And we've never heard, despite the fact that they go on strikes, we've never heard them saying no work, no pay for them. You pay them their monies in full. So here you go on strike, you're penalized you go on strike for legitimate reasons, you're penalized. Recently when we went on strike for the release of our member, gratefully I was on, and thank God she has been released. Dr. Ganiat has been released, so thank God for that. But when we went on a strike action, we were penalized. So it's so imagine all these issues and these experiences, and yes, of course the Nigerian doctor will not be happy. So we're hopeful that in 2025 the government will do better. The government will do better to ensure that the welfare of Nigerians, the welfare of the medical practitioners in the health sector, not just the doctors, but including the nurses and other healthcare practitioners, is taken care of, in order to ensure that people who receive health, people who offer that health care are also happy, and people who receive health care services, Nigerians who come to the hospital to receive health care services, will be treated in the best way as much as possible. So these are the issues. Thank you very much.
I mean, a lot of concern right there when we look at the strength of the primary health care. Is the president also looking at how is outlining plans to strengthen the gap between the primary health care and to revitalize hospitals? Speak to us about if we have 5.18% allocation in addressing critical health, is it enough?
Well, so it's good for starters. Of course, it's not, it can't be enough, but it's good for starters, because if we get such funding, if such funding is utilized to improve in critical sectors of the Nigerian healthcare system, it will go a long way, to be honest with you. 5.18 trillion, it's enough to start the process, and if it's just to cover for 2025, at least it will take care of the healthcare needs at the basic level.
As all of these allocations be properly utilized, because the primary problem we are having in the country is that sometimes we have allocations to sectors, but it looks like it's not fully utilized or implemented. Would you realize also that it's also a major concern, because year in, year out, you have allocation to all of these things to be addressed?
Of course, so that's the issue. So that's why I was trying to say that the problem is not the funding or the budgeting, but the problem here is the ability of it's the allocation, the appropriate allocation, and the utilization of the funds that were funded. So I would say this again, just to maybe put it into to put it into a form of. So sometimes the hospital will budget for certain equipment and send it to the federal government. You look at the budget, you find it there in the narration of the Federal Ministry of Health. And then you still have to go pushing and lobbying and moving from one ministry to the other to ensure that this funding is done. And if you're not lucky, you will not get funding for that equipment or those things you requested for at that particular point in time. So these are the challenges, these are the problems that we face here in the out. That what has been budgeted for by the federal government, what has been documented in that MDA's budget, approved budget, the head or the medical director or the director of that particular institution will still have to struggle to ensure that those things that are budgeted for him comes to him. And sometimes these things are even hijacked. The next thing you're seeing things that are budgeted for an MDA, maybe a building or a structure or something budgeted for an MDA, has become a pet project for one senator or something like that. This is how it happens. And then it becomes his so-called constituency project. He executes it, and then you come and see a substandard stuff being built. So these are the challenges. Sometimes you see people changing the narrative or the narration in budget. There's a story of a certain institution where they were supposed to get a linear accelerator, and then someone went and budgeted brachytherapy machines instead, affecting the service delivery in such institution. There's so much, there's a lot of things, and this is where politicians interfere with service delivery, with how things are supposed to be done in the country. This is where we talk about, this is where we should bring to the fore how the National Assembly, that are supposed to be protecting the rights of the Nigerian citizens, keep interfering with MDAs because they want to get kickbacks. These are some of the challenges that we face. So we talk about, so there's the situation is quite complex, but we are hopeful that this money is allocated to the healthcare system, is properly utilized, so that there will be an improvement in the healthcare sector. So it's not just the executive arm of government that is facing challenges. The legislative arm is also a problem, and also even the people at the grassroots and everyone else have a role to play to improve healthcare service delivery in the country. The private sector, people who the so-called health insurance partners, what do they call them again? The providers of health insurance under the NHIA still have their own issues. You could be waiting for code from your provider for so long while someone is in the accident and emergency, and emergency services have to be provided for such individual. Code may take 24 hours for it to come. These are the issues. These are the challenges. So we need to do better. All healthcare providers need to do better moving forward. Thank you.
All right, Doctor. I mean, there's been this concern about doctors protest sometimes, or strike, call it protest and all of that. The continuous actions of always leaving the hospitals has always been a major concern, because the life of Nigerians is paramount, your welfare is paramount. But how do we manage this for 2025 in case of incidences like this? Because sometimes we wake up, some sad incidences at a point where your doctors are demanding one thing or the other, or going on a strike.
Yeah, so hopefully, the good thing is that the frequency that we go on strike for has actually drastically reduced. There was a time where medical doctors in the country would go on strike up to 3 to 4 times in a year. But I think in the last 1 year, resident doctors only went on strike for 1 period, and it was just in order to express our displeasure for the persistent kidnap of our colleague and other colleagues all over the country. So it wasn't even for money, and it was a legitimate reason. We don't like going on strike. That's just the truth. We prefer to do our work and go home and see our families and rest. Strike is actually a very stressful thing to prosecute, particularly, especially those of us at the leadership or at the Association of Resident Doctors in the country. Because if you're on a strike action, it's like the regular adage in Nigeria, in Pidgin, that says, "Mama picking way no go, no allow me, mama sleeping man no go sleep." So it's that situation. You're always traveling from one place to another, either enforcing strike actions or meeting with government officials, meeting with people, receiving late night calls and interact, call up the strike, the negotiations back and forth. So it's a very stressful period, usually a very stressful period to prosecute a strike action. But the challenge here remains that we all need to have all hands on deck to ensure things work. We will ensure at our level to ensure that we make sure we do our best to work behind the scenes to ensure that all our welfare is provided for us and we don't have to burden or stress Nigerians because of the strike period, because of the strike. But the future is pregnant. We don't know what will happen. But I believe Nigerian doctors do not just wantonly go on strike. We rather just stay and take care of our patients, live with our families, and just enjoy the small coins that the federal government pays us. So yes, we don't like going on strike, except of course if the government pushes us.
What is your assessment of the role of state government in addressing all of these health issues? Because much of the time we're looking at what the federal are doing, but the sector is very critical. Yes, there must be a fast approach of state also involvement in this sector. What is your assessment of state cooperation within the health sector?
Thank you very much. I think the state governments, they need to do more than they are doing now. I feel it is I can say it's sad that the state governments are not putting in much efforts compared to what the federal government. They are not complementing the federal government to attain this health for all that everyone is talking about. Some state governments have tried implementing health insurance schemes, state health insurance schemes. Some are working. A lot of state governments have misplaced priorities. To be honest, I would say that because you cannot say, for example, I don't want to talk about the current Kaduna State, but previously in Kaduna State, there's a thing about the state government at the time building so many primary health care centers, but the pay for the health workers in the state was so poor that there was the Kaduna State was the so-called poster state for what was called internal brain drain. Internal brain drain in the sense that people were leaving Kaduna State to go and work in neighboring states or other states to feed their families that were staying in Kaduna State. So it was that bad that people were leaving the employment of Kaduna State government. Health workers were leaving the employment of Kaduna State workers. Up till today, the welfare of medical personnel in Kaduna State is still very, very poor. It's one of the poorest in the country. It is one of the poorest, I believe, in the whole country. So, of course, health indices will not be good in such states. So these are the challenges. It's not about building primary healthcare centers. It's not about just making buildings or buying a CT scan machine or buying an MRI machine. That's not just where it is. It's about ensuring the small things that matter in the health sector for your state. How do you provide basic medications? How do you ensure vaccination? How do you ensure that there's availability of emergency medical care and surgical services in your state is available? How do you ensure that patients can be easily transported from their location to the health sector? How do you avoid delays in patients being seen from home to the health sector? There's even a whole system that the country has completely abandoned, and that's pre-hospital care services. There is absolutely no form of pre-hospital care in Nigeria. Majority of time, you have the Federal Road Safety Corps trying to carry a patient from the scene of an accident or from wherever there's a problem to the hospital, but there is absolutely no care offered to those patients from when. So sometimes if you pick up a patient that is alive from an accident scene, you come and deposit a dead body in the hospital because no care was rendered to the person en route to the hospital. So these are some of the challenges that are being faced, that the state government should fill up some of these spots. Things like primary pre-hospital care, primary health care services, comprehensive health care services, and even some form of tertiary health care services. We have people having state teaching hospitals. As far as I'm concerned, this may not be absolutely necessary. These things should be, tertiary services should be concentrated in the hands of the federal government. You sort out primary and secondary health care services. Ensure that your general hospitals are standardized. Ensure that your primary health care services are standardized, and see how things will improve. Why not allow the local governments take care of basic health and primary health care services, and you probably focus on secondary health care services? Why not empower your local governments? These are issues. If government is properly distributed at various levels and functions are properly distributed, with every level above providing oversight for the level below, things will be better. So I think we need to look at that. Thank you.
When we look at all of these, the seed of reforms already beginning to bear fruits, we are still paying attention to look at how drugs can be affordable for many Nigerians, because, as I stated earlier, is a major problem for many citizens. What would you advise to be quick steps for government in getting these really resolved quickly? Because people are now being resorted to, for self-help. And in the process of resorting to self-help, there are dangers also posed to those actions. What would be your concern for 2025? Is the president ready to tackle issues of health care in Nigeria, in our country? What should be the quick steps in looking at that very disturbing trend that people are now resorting to self-help?
Yeah, so it's very sad that people have to self-medicate or look for other means to provide medications for themselves. It's not right, it's not acceptable. First things first, there needs to be a lot of advocacy. The government needs to come out to inform the public, health education and advocacy, to ensure that people when they are sick, they seek help in the hospitals. 2 is availability of medications within the hospitals. See, the truth is, instead of a patient going outside to sort fake medications and all that outside the hospital, if medications are available within the hospital premises, both primary, secondary, and tertiary institutions, then people don't have to go out to go and procure fake medications outside or use other unorthodox medications. So I think these are the issues here. So the quick fix, again, will be provision of fast medicines, adequate provision of medicines in all levels of health within the health institutions. That's one. Two, the NAFDAC needs to rise up to its occasion to ensure that there's elimination of fake medications in the country. It's not just push going around looking for people who are dealing in fake food or fake alcohol, but also needs to look at fake medication because that also is on the rise in the country and it needs to be tackled. Two, this also brings us to production of drugs, local production of drugs. So the thing the government needs to do, and this is actually long term, the government first, on the short term, there needs to be a waiver on the importation of pharmaceutical products, which I think has already been put into effect. This will also reduce the cost of these medications and improve access to them. But on the long term, the government needs to invest in research and development of locally produced pharmaceutical drugs. This was what India did. This was what China did. And look at that. They are the ones that most of the drugs that are consumed in the world.
All right.
This is where we get most medications from. Yes.
All right, thanks so much, Doctor, for joining us this morning. Dr. Jaiye Abbas is the Northwest Caucus leader, the former president of resident doctors in Kaduna Zaria, precisely. Thanks so much for sparing some of your New Year morning with us here on the show.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
All right, everyone, we will also continue to look at the promises of the president. The president has raised the hope of Nigerians and has set agenda for 2025. For now, let's get to go on the break. And once we return from the break, we'll be finalizing the discussions and looking at the new agenda for 2025. Because the president said 2025 is going to work. The state government are also speaking about the New Year message. We'll be looking at what are the messages of some of the stakeholders and also looking at the indicators of how they will translate all of these rhetorics, all of these fantastic New Year messages to action. Action must be taken. There's a need to swing to action and addressing the economic situation in our nation. I'll be right back to stay with us.
Oh
Alright everyone, many thanks for still staying with us. This is still the new year show on global television. A lot of concern about how the mood of the many nations and of course around the world are today. A lot of concern about what it means for 2025. A lot of events that will be unveiling for the year 2025. Back to the rest of the world, the United States, a lot of anticipation is already feeling the hair, counting the days. Just 19 days to go right now to January 20th, where Donald Trump will be sworn into office as re-elected president of the United States of America. It looks at already is giving a signal to the rest of the world. Many countries are still putting their eyes to look at what it means economically, what it means politically for the rest of the world. It's still a major year. Coming back to Nigeria, Mr. President, I was continuing to look at how he's acknowledging the difficulties of 2024. That it looks at many things will begin to take different dimensions for the year 2025. He's being optimistic. The president is so much optimistic for the future of Nigeria, looking at the indicators, the pointers, economy pointers, operational of Dangote, operational of Port Harcourt refinery and that of Warri refinery. Now that they are fully operational, would that also reduce the pump price of the petrol? These are the questions many have asked, and the president looks to be optimistic about all of those factors to be contributing to where Nigeria will be or Nigerians will feel for 2025. The impact of all of those reforms, which for many, after 18 months, have not really had way, we could point to be the really strength of those reforms in terms of reflecting on the life of Nigeria. Because generally, an argument that government exists for the people. These policies are existing for the people, and if it's not better, it's not contributing to better the life of the people, then there have raised a lot of concern that many governments should look at paying attention to those areas. The Nigerian Labour Congress are also kicking today, looking at minimum wage implementation. For them, the 70,000 naira earlier agreed is no longer enough. The soaring inflation again has preceded events that led to that agreement of 70,000. So for them, it looks like they'll be paying attention again to look at how they have reviewed the minimum wage. Consideration of also looking at if the 70,000 naira that already have been signed by the president have properly been looked into in terms of implementation. So they already started kicking. Recall the law has actually given room. The president also said that this will be reviewed every 3 years in a way to also look at prioritizing the welfare of the labor. And Nigerian labor are already kicking. Inflation is not meeting with the number. Yet again, many states and others are yet to even pay 70,000 naira minimum wage. For 2025, we're looking forward to see how that can work. If inflation reduces, just as the president said, to 15%, away from the 34% for the year, would it mean that 70,000 naira will no longer be enough? Obviously, the answer is quite there on your lips. A lot of concern about inflation is a major issue. Nigerians are adjusting, Nigerians adapting to all of the reforms, but they're only having concern over issues of inflation. In agriculture, the president is also insisting that they will boost agriculture, and a lot of roles for government and everyone to play, state government, local government, and their roles to play in terms of driving this inflation is still a major challenges. Noting that there will be a gradual decrease in the fuel prices and the foreign trade surpluses that have been recorded in the last year. The naira will continue to have some strength against dollar for the year 2025, which will be pegged at 1,500. I recall how much the president met the dollar, and the president looks after the policy of floating the naira. Naira gone up to even as high as 1,800, 1,900, even crossing over to the 2,000s, but wasn't able to hold brief there, and drastically it has gone back to over 1,600, 1,700 at market. President said for 2025 it will be stable, pegged at 1,500, just to be able to control our inflations and the impact of all of these reforms. All of that are what the president has assured for the year 2025, and many governors are already speaking today, of course, also joining voices to look at the new year messages. PDP are also calling on the president. They are saying to president, don't bother yourself on new year addresses. It looks at a lot of concern about solutions to hardship. The People's Democratic Party are telling Mr. President, do not bother yourself on New Year address, void of solutions to hardship. They are asking that he does not bother himself on New Year unless he provide immediate and concrete steps to reduce the price of fuel and also address the widespread hunger and outline the clear measures to guarantee the security of lives and property in the country. They were saying that today and explaining that in their message, which from the fact addresses by the president over the 18 months are focused solely on PDP are describing it to be hopeless rhetorics of unsubstantiated statistics, false promises, conjured performance claims, and validation of flawed election without concrete mechanism to address insecurity and resuscitate the economy, create jobs, ensure credible election, and guarantee better living standard for Nigerians. The PDP are kicking over the president's address. This stated that president must address issues of alleged unbridled corruption, deceit budget padding, reckless and wasteful spending directed towards funding, and the lifestyle of members of all progressive Congress leaders, the insensitivity to citizen suffering, and a total disregard for the obligations of government which have made life unbearable for Nigerians under his administration. They are also challenging the president to use the address to account for the billions of naira officially reported to have occurred from the removal of subsidy in the petroleum product. They added that president should come clean on his public commitment to fight corruption by ordering an investigation and the recovery of over 25 trillion reportedly stolen by some of the leaders who in the government and all of those who are in the failure of the APC government to revisit and address the reported cases of alleged state-backed killings in various parts of the country. particularly during the 2020 NSAS protests and the inhuman denial of massacre of the promising Nigerians youth in the repulsive incident of the end by governance protests. These has continued to be the voices of the opposition looking at the New Year message of the president. Opposition has kicked. A lot of persons have said, shun the rhetorics, shun the New Year message, get to action, give us quick steps in guaranteeing security, guaranteeing the better lives of Nigerians for the year 2025. The president said, I'm optimistic, I'm aware of all the challenges, I'm aware of all those issues for 2024. 2025 is going to be a long year. We'll put these two side by side and looking at the projection of what it means for Nigerians. Nigerians are also looking at actions and not just word from the leaders and not just word from the government, but there should be actions, a quick step action, a short-term solutions to the problems and economic issues for the past year 2024. Now that we are in for 2025. I will continue to track and bring all of those development as it happens. The action so far, what are the state government doing, what are the local government doing, and what are they also the federal government doing. We'll continue to look at that factors and bringing that to speed to you so you can continue to have a holistic view. But 2025 is also a year of great hope. Let's continue to be optimistic. Hold firm, pray for the leaders, and continue to trust that things will work in the year 2025. We wish you a prosperous 2025 and a continuous programming here on Global Television to bringing you all of the happenings, not just in Nigeria, but around the world. My name is Edika Michael. This is where we wrap it up here on the Global Morning, beginning the new year, the new month, and a new day for you. You can sit tight as Ramsey will be here at the top of the hour to bring you some of the new year update on the world of sports. We'll continue to bring all of that development subsequently on our bulletins as well as on the news and for other programming. My name is Edika Michael. Thanks so much for staying and joining us first on the morning of the new year. We all see our Global Television. Bye-bye for now.
Welcome to Global Morning.
Death toll from flooding.
Most time our politicians just bring in policies too, for sure. If you don't say we have several more stories.
The legislature was careful